Federal judges on multiple occasions have fired Trump-appointed prosecutors and have told them, get out. You're not actually the United States attorney in various districts, which would be the top federal prosecutor of a district. And these federal judges have the power to extend the term of these interim United States attorneys after a 120-day period, or they get to fire these top federal prosecutors who were just there on an interim basis until such time as the Senate confirms them. And so over and over again, we've seen federal judges firing these Trump-appointed federal prosecutors, and these Trump-appointed federal prosecutors are refusing to leave. They're refusing to accept the fact that they've been fired, and they just stay in the building. And they keep signing their name as the top federal prosecutor for these respective districts. And then the judges have to scratch their name off, or the judges then tell the line prosecutors who show up, who technically have to report to these Trump stooges, oftentimes people without federal prosecutorial experience at all, who are the bosses of these districts. The kind of rank and file prosecutors show up, and the judges confront them. And the judges say, why the heck do you keep putting these people's names on these court filings as the United States attorney for whatever district it is? They're gone. They're not the person. And then these rank and file prosecutors have to say, we're not doing it. Like, we're being forced to do it by Main Justice in Washington, D.C. at the Department of Justice. They're forcing us to do it. So we have this bizarre, loser, weird, just a total lack of credibility type situation where you actually have top federal prosecutors as squatters. And it's not just like one example of it. I mean, you have that in the Eastern District of Virginia. We all know that example with Lindsay Halligan, who's never been a federal prosecutor in her life before. And she was disqualified by the federal judge who was overseeing the disqualification motion in the Comey and Letitia James case because they didn't go through the appropriate process even to make her an interim. She's still signing her name on pleadings, on court filings. We showed you one right there. You could pull it up one more time and you'll see her name. And it says that she's the United States attorney and special attorney. It says literally United States attorney Lindsay Halligan, when she's not the United States attorney. It doesn't even say on the filing, if anything, you can say interim. She's acting like she's Senate confirmed. Like, this is beyond delusion. Like, just think about how it would be the other way, right? Donald Trump in The Apprentice. You're fired. No. Yes, you're fired. Get out of here. No. I still have the job. What are you talking about? These people are sociopaths. So you have Lindsay Halligan in the Eastern District of Virginia. She's still signing her name as the top United States attorney there. But then you have Alina Habba doing it in the only district in New Jersey, the district court for New Jersey. She signs her name still as though she's the United States attorney. She makes public appearances and calls herself the United States attorney for New Jersey. Again, she's someone with no federal prosecutorial experience at all. I could give you like a number of other examples. Like, you've got the guy in the Northern District of New York. I think the guy's name is like Sarcone or Sarconi, also with no federal prosecutorial experience. And, you know, it's delusional, but it's not a laughing matter, because we know about these high profile cases where they're getting disqualified from. But just think about all the other criminal cases that exist that are getting tainted because these federal prosecutorial squatters who are unlawfully there don't leave. And criminal defendants are going to be able to make arguments right now and on appeal that we have this process that's been tainted by unlawful prosecutors. It's wild. Here's how they describe the situation on CNN as it relates to Lindsay Halligan, especially now in light of the fact that we learned that the prosecutors have once again tried to get that indictment of New York Attorney General Letitia James after it was previously dismissed because Halligan was disqualified for being an unlawful prosecutor. and the grand jury refused to submit a true bill. They rejected the indictment because it was frivolous, essentially. Watch how they described it on CNN.
It is the falling action of what happens after a judge dismissed both the cases against James Comey and Letitia James, cases that Donald Trump really wanted. What has happened in court since then is this judge's finding it was that Lindsay Halligan, the prosecutor who took those cases through the grand jury previously and was serving as the U.S. attorney, a judge had found last Monday she's not the U.S. attorney. She needed to be Senate confirmed or approved by the judges, has not been, and thus she's just doesn't have that power as the top prosecutor in the Eastern District of Virginia. Since then, there are at least 3 judges that I have found, along with reporter Devin Cole here. We have been able to pull court transcripts from this week. 3 different judges are telling the prosecutors from that office in the Eastern District of Virginia that Lindsay Halligan, she is just not the U.S. attorney. Her name should not be on court filings, especially guilty pleas and indictments. And yet the U.S. Attorney's Office of the Justice Department, they insist they believe she is still the U.S. attorney. And so they're keeping to put her name on the filings. 2 judges crossed out her name this week on different court proceedings of other criminal defendants. Another judge put an asterisk next to it on several different indictments. And they're saying that the law in the district is that she is not the U.S. attorney. A real standoff.
I want to bring in Harry Litman of the Talking Feds YouTube channel, Talking Feds podcast, and Talking Feds Substack. And what you all should know about Harry is Harry was the United States attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania. Harry was one of the leaders at Main Justice in Washington, D.C. So he brings a unique perspective to this. This is just the DOJ in shambles. Like it's just the DOJ as a thing is over. The credibility, right? It's going to have to be rebuilt, but this is just humiliating.
It's breathtaking. You can say DOJ, or maybe you need to say like DOJ. It's as if they've set up a separate, enclave of a seceding municipality, or people using counterfeit money and just saying it's okay, we can do it. The sort of blatant, as you say, defiance of court orders. We talked about this, Ben, and it was a big deal way back when with Abrego Garcia and the immigration function. But this, I'm trying, and by the way, it's the entire project. The way they tried to get Alina Habba in the first place and Lindsay Halligan is because they've been trying to, how dare you, Congress, tell us whom we can hire and whom we can't. But, first of all, in all seriousness, the potential consequences for public safety, every single indictment there is certainly as null and void as it was for Comey, as it was for James. By the way, they didn't try this little trick with James when they attempted unsuccessfully to reindict her. We're told it was although who knows how that actual indictment, had it been returned, would have been signed. But it's comic, tragic, mind-blowing. How can it be? Here's the ruling comes. Goodbye, Lindsay Halligan. Pack up your bags, please. And just, no, we're staying because we feel like it. And obviously must be with the approval and knowledge of Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche. It's like 2 middle fingers to the court. But you don't need, thanks for mentioning my credentials, but you don't need any special credentials to have your mind just blown off by the court, very strongly litigated by back and forth by the Department of Justice, says she can't be there. And then, boom. And think about it. I mean, you do not have this kind of mano a mano conflict between federal judges and these poor, very unenviable line prosecutors who go in like, it's not my fault, I didn't do it. Here's the indictment. And judges literally are crossing it off. Now, I think the DOJ is going to try a fig leaf legal argument along the following lines, Ben. It's, yeah, you said she's unqualified. Yeah, you said she wasn't appointed. Yeah. But you didn't say she had to go. Like what? It would follow that, she could just stick around anyway. It's, as I say, breathtakingly lawless, and it can only make for trouble. You have to imagine. Another thing it illustrates is nothing matters more for Trump and the administration than having loyalists in there because, God damn it, he wants to. That he is obviously, and Bondi is obviously, and Blanchard obviously just hunky-dory with whatever real cases they have, not like James and Comey, but serious cases, be completely jeopardized, and the entire bench being completely apoplectic at their lawlessness. And why exactly? What are they hoping could happen? That the federal courts will somehow say, "Oh, we got it wrong. She's actually was qualified to be appointed." Because remember, part of their ruling is, and don't try other kinds of maneuvers here. What the statute says is you can't try to do something that gives you the equivalent of a U.S. attorney's power under any other name. So it's just could not be more, freight train on the tracks, illegal, unlawful, completely ignoring what federal courts have said, and under circumstances that is going to alienate judges, but especially put public safety at some jeopardy. And what do they really hope? I don't think they have any pretense that she's going to one day be U.S. attorney. It's just like, we stick it to anyone who tries to say we can't call out who the U.S. attorney is, even though that's the law and it's the Constitution. One final point is this isn't them saying it violates Article 2 because inferior officers, and U.S. attorneys are inferior officers, the Constitution reposes the power to determine appointments in Congress. So you don't have the big unitary executive argument either. They just don't have a leg to stand on, and a finger to stand on, a toe to stand on, and they're doing it anyway. It's like a pretend republic that has just been set up in the Duchy of Alexandria for a block where they put up, a fake flag and say, we don't care, this is us. Anyway, it's staggering.
I just want everyone to think about what Harry Litman has said, that the Department of Justice argument is that Lindsay Halligan is basically just the argument is the federal judges said, you're fired. Get out of here.
You're a nullity. You're not even fired. You never were. You're and
the response was, from where? Or you're fired, but you never said I have to remove my name from the documents. Yeah, when we said fired and leave, that means you can put your name on the documents. So that's what's going on in Virginia. But then their argument with Alina Habba, what the Department of Justice tried to say, so there, when the judges fired Alina Habba, they then picked the first assistant United States attorney, the next person who was highest up, to now basically become the interim or to be in that role and lead the office. So then what Alina Habba did was fired that person and then took that person's job. And so their argument was to the judges, oh, so you now appointed this other lady to become the leader of the office, but now Alina Habba fired her and took her job. So therefore you gave it to Alina Habba. And then the Third Circuit Court of Appeals is like, no, we didn't. What are you talking about? You can't just steal somebody else's job after we fired you. And that was their argument with Habba. It's out of control behavior. And it's like, you don't even have the power to fire her. We fired you. What are you doing? I'll give you the final word, Eric.
Yeah, look, with Habba, it's even a little worse because it was Bondi who fired her, Bondi who raised the middle finger to the court there. And if you have a completely recalcitrant assholic Department of Justice. It's one thing you have to worry about. This has never come up. I was U.S. attorney, as you say, before I got there. It's just the way it's supposed to be. The interim ran out. So the court installed someone, a Republican, very well respected. Nobody, no like real Department of Justice, and instead of this, bizarro Department of Justice, would have thought to push it even then. And they've pushed it to 4, 5, 6 different levels. So they now, at every turn say, well, we don't care what you say. This is the U.S. attorney. This cannot end well, Ben. And it can't even take too long to really, for push to come to shove. And it's just the zeal and the kind of fervor of this crazy conduct. They, obviously are looked it right in the eye and said, yeah, well, we'll pretend that it never happened, and we're going with it. This is all, by the way, all this has happened in the last week or two. It's as flagrant a kind of disobedience to the court as there's been, but they have to think about the scheme doesn't contemplate what happens if you do the job, and then the administration can still fire who's ever in there, and because the court had appointed, as you say, the first assistant to be in that job. So norms and laws, they're just trying to create chaos, lockdown, some kind of, neener is their legal argument. And, push is coming to shove, and soon when you have a whole series of judges who are completely out of joint about this, as indeed they should be.
Everybody hit subscribe here, and make sure you subscribe to Harry Litman's YouTube channel, Talking Feds. Subscribe to his podcast, also called The Talking Feds, and the Substack, The Talking Feds Substack. Thanks, Harry.
Thank you, Ben. Wild, wild days. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video and other Talking Feds content, please take a second to like and subscribe. Talk to you later.